You're listening to Science Coast with Mallory Havens and
Chris White.
And our return guest,
Lou Freeman.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
So Captain Freeman has been working for several years with an organization called Tuskegee NEXT. And what I was hoping we could chat with him about is, the organization and what the organization is about, and aviation for pilots of color and what we're trying to do to help them. So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about Tuskegee NEXT.
I would love to talk about Tuskegee NEXT. Tuskegee NEXT is very close to my heart. First of all, Tuskegee NEXT started in 2015, and our founder, who's still our chairman, was Steve Davis, who's a black businessman, and he's actually a pilot and flies, and he decided that he wanted to do something to give back. And the thing to do in his mind was to help train young, we say, underrepresented students. And what we've done is we've gotten a program together that is so sleek and so good that we have like a 90% success rate. What happens is we take applications from people all over the country, and we vet those applications, and we pick out the best of the best, and we usually pick somewhere between 10 and 14 cadets. We call them cadets. We send them through a ground school training that starts this one's going to start the 25th of February, but they go through ground school training every other Sunday until May. And then in the middle of June, the ones that do well in the ground school, they come to Chicago, and that's their only expense, getting to and from Chicago. The rest of the expense is taken care of by our donors. And basically it costs us somewhere around $30,000 per cadet.
Wow.
But we feed them and fly them, make them study, and transport them all over the place. And in the end, after just 2 months, they go from zero flying to not only having their private pilot's license, but they have their drone pilot's license too.
Oh, wow.
And what we're trying to do is to teach them that if they put their mind to it, whatever it happens to be, it doesn't have to be flying, it could be rocket science or surgery. They put their mind to it and they work hard at it, they can do it. And it's a wonderful program. I love working with it. And last year and this coming year, I've been the program director, which meant that basically every day during the summer, I'm spending time with these young 18 to 20-year-olds and making sure that they're doing the right thing and acting right. And we teach them life's lessons, too, along the way.
Sounds a little bit like boot camp.
Well, you know what? In some ways, it is a lot like boot camp because you have to be disciplined in order to get through it. And you have to be willing to follow instructions. That's part of the deal. If you don't follow instructions, we send you home. You've got to be ready to focus.
So there's some growing up that happens.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
It is, because you're going to have to grow up in life. If you're going to be successful at whatever, you're going to have to grow up and get it done.
So you have to be 18 to 20 to do the program?
18 to 20.
And when you say, what kind of person is underrepresented in flight now?
An underrepresented person is somebody whose parents can't afford to send them off to go fly airplanes.
Okay. So a variety of backgrounds.
Yes.
We heard in an earlier podcast about Captain Freeman being the first black pilot for Southwest Airlines. And to this day, the number of pilots of color are very low compared to other professions.
Is that true for female pilots as well? I think so.
It is true for female.
It is.
Right. So it is a very male-dominated profession. And as is often the case, the profession will benefit as we, I'm Dean of the College of Aviation Science and Technology at Lewis University. So we have, aviation programs within the college. So that's where the we comes from. Definitely want to try to recruit students from diverse backgrounds so that we can, help the aviation industry. Right now, there's a shortage of pilots, there's a shortage of mechanics, there's a shortage of dispatchers, there's just a massive shortage of air traffic controllers. And we have a segment of the population that's sitting on the sideline, and we have to get them off the sideline and into these careers. That's how often I think about it.
One major problem is that they don't see anybody that looks like them doing the job.
Right.
And we're fortunate there are a lot more minority and female pilots around now, and I'm happy about that because I used to be out there by myself trying to recruit. Now I have a team of us doing it. And it's just a matter of exposing them to aviation, just like I wasn't exposed to aviation growing up. Same thing is still going on.
So if I'm not technically great at driving a car, I wouldn't say I'm a bad driver, but I'm certainly not a good driver. How do you think that translates to flying a plane? Would I also probably not be great?
No. First of all, whoever it was that was teaching you to drive, they didn't teach you to focus while you were driving. So you're probably doing 5 other things while you're driving the car.
To be fair, I learned how to drive way before the cell phone was commonly available. I know I look young, but
But I'm just saying they train you.
right.
They
Okay.
do a good job of training you. Otherwise, you don't get through the program. You think about it, the FAA is not going to let airlines hire a bunch of unqualified people and put them in the airplanes and say, go fly. So the airlines are not going to do it because the airlines are not going to want the liability. And the FAA is not going to do it because it looks bad if they're monitoring you and making sure that you're meeting all their standards and you're bringing all these people in. So I know lately there have been people making noise about hiring unqualified minorities and females, but it's just the opposite. The minorities and females that are getting hired are very qualified because they're stuck in the cockpit with that guy with the different color neck. So they've got to be able to hold their own because there's nobody there to help protect them.
Yeah.
So as director of the program, for that 2-month period that's very intensive, could you maybe outline for the listeners, potentially students who might be interested in this, what the typical day might be like? Like, is there reveling in the morning, or how does it go?
Well, no, it is not reveille, but I tell you what, you have to be downstairs having eaten breakfast and ready to get in the vans at 7:00.
Easy.
Because we take them to DuPage County Airport or to Clough Airport, which is about 20 minutes away from here. And they're all staying here at Lewis, which is kind of nice. And up at IAA, which is Illinois Aviation Academy, they do calisthenics every morning.
Ooh.
They do. Yeah. The person that runs the program up there thinks that wakes them up. So he puts them in a big circle, and they have to be ready to exercise. But then you go fly, and when you get done flying, you come back and you have ground school all afternoon, and then you get back in the van and come back to the university. You have dinner, and then you have 2 hours worth of study hall at night, and then you get ready and go to bed because you got to start all over again the next day.
How many hours do you have to fly to get a commercial pilot's license?
Well, to get a commercial pilot's
Okay,
license?
I get a private. Let's
Private.
start there.
Maybe you could just walk through the steps of going from a private pilot to, commercial.
Okay. Private pilot, if you go through a 141 program like we have here at Lewis, it's a minimum of 35 hours of flying time. But
Okay.
you've got to be good to get done in 35. More people are finishing in 50 to 60 hours. If you go through a Part 61 program like at CLOW, they have a minimum of 40 hours that you do. The program here is stricter and more steps, and that's why it's less training. Then you go and get your instruments, and it's the same thing. It takes you probably a semester to get your instruments. And then if you came through a 141 program, once you have 190 hours total, well, then you can get your commercial license. And otherwise, if you go through the Part 61, it's 250 hours, so it takes you more. And then you need to get your multi-engine license. And if you want somebody to pay you to fly, well, then you probably need to get your CFI, your Certified Flight Instructor. And it takes them all 4 years here at Lewis, but everybody that graduates with a flight major here graduates as a CFI, so they can actually get employment flying airplanes.
But having a degree and having the commercial certificate is not sufficient to get employed by, for example, Southwest Airlines. There's a minimum total number of flight hours that's necessary.
That's true. And basically, you don't go straight from school to Southwest Airlines. You go through a regional carrier or a Part 135 carrier, which is cargo, basically. You have to go through them and build your time in order to be able to go to a carrier like Southwest. And there are programs, the pathway programs. Right now here at Lewis, we have the pathway program with Spirit Airlines, so they will take our people from here at Lewis, mainly our CFIs, because they're the only ones with enough time. We have United's Aviate program, and they do the same thing. And we were just visited by Southwest just last week, and hopefully we'll be in their 225 program. And if we can do that, well, then they have pathway partners. So once you get your CFI here, well, then you fly, you get your time, and then they'll send you to one of their partners, and then you'll end up at Southwest Airlines, and it's a smooth, easy flow. And it's the same way with the Aviate program.
It's a good setup for the students.
It is. You interview once, and 4 years later, you have a job.
Provided that you keep up the standards along
Yes.
the way.
Yes.
There's many benchmarks that you're going to have to make sure that you achieve along the way. Getting back to the Tuskegee NEXT, though, because what we heard Captain Freeman talking about was going from in basically 8 weeks from being the first time climbing into the left seat of the cockpit, to having your private pilot's license. And normally here at Lewis University, as coming in as a freshman, you might begin stage 1 of your private pilot training in August and not expect to actually have your private pilot's license until May. So it would be an entire academic year of taking your ground school course and doing your flight blocks three times a week for the entire academic year to earn your private, whereas Tuskegee NEXT is pushing those cadets through that entire process in 8 weeks. It's very impressive.
It's an accelerated program for the reason that I mentioned. We want them to know that if they're willing to work really hard and focus, they can do basically the impossible.
And it benefits too, if you can't afford to pay for all 4 years of school, it's great to be from point A to point B where you can have some sort of employment from that within 8 weeks.
So the first class was in 2015, is that what you said?
Yes.
Have you been following the cadets or the graduates of the program? Where are they now?
We have graduates with major airlines. We have graduates in the military. And we have a total of 62 that have graduated with their pilot wings in that amount of time. Kind of COVID slowed us down. We couldn't do anything then, but the original goal was to have 100 pilots in 10 years. So we're a little bit behind there.
No, I think you can catch up.
Yeah, COVID messed everything up for everyone.
And I have to say that from Lewis University's perspective, we are incredibly proud to have Tuskegee NEXT scholars living on our campus. We're very happy to have you here.
Well, they love living on Lewis, and I like the fact that they're here too.
So, if there's a young person out there who's thinking that they might be interested, how would they get in touch? How would they apply?
Okay, first of all, they're going to have to wait until August to apply because we just closed our application window. It's usually open from August to the end of December. This year we kept it open to the end of January. So we just closed it last week, and now I'm in the midst of wading through all of these applications and trying to read them so we can weed them because we ended up with a whole lot more than we'll ever be able to train. So we have to weed them out, and then we're going to interview them. Each one of them that we're going to interview is going to get a 45-minute interview. So I'm saying go on the website, Tuskegee, Tuskegee next.org, and look for the application. And you're going to need to write a couple of essays. You're going to need to get a couple of letters of recommendation, plus a lot of other stuff. But the bottom line is, if you want to fly airplanes and you want to get it done for free, whatever it is that it took for you to get that done is minuscule with what you get in repayment.
For sure, yeah. Anything for free is amazing. And with that, the views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Lewis University. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. The Lewis University name and all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. This podcast was produced in the WLRA podcast studios at Lewis University. Visit lewisu.edu for more information about Lewis University. This has been Science Coast with Mallory Havens and
Chris White
and
Lou Freeman.
Thanks again.